Well, happy Tuesday here, guys. It's an exciting week, especially for the AFC East. I mean, let's face it, the Dolphins ended up winning a game which was they weren't supposed to win, or at least many people didn't think they would win. Buffalo seems to be competitive now. The New York Jets put 2 wins back-to-back. Unbelievable. And we want to talk some Jets football right now, so nobody better to do that with than Daryl Slater from NewJersey.com, NJ.com. He covers the Jets. And, Daryl, thanks for stopping by, my friend.
Of course, no problem.
All right, so let's this is a pretty big hurdle for the Jets organization and for this team to be able to put back-to-back wins together like this. Some people look at it and be like, what is the big deal? But it's actually a pretty big deal for the New York Jets, isn't it?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the Jets had not won back-to-back games since weeks 3 to 5 last year when they had a 3-game winning streak. You look at this team, that was definitely a hurdle. They had 3 opportunities where they could have, since that winning streak, where they could have put wins together, and they were unable to do it. Of course, starting most recently here in Week 1, when they looked so impressive against the Lions, and then they flopped 3-game losing streak. So the team has responded nicely, and they're 3-3, and they sort of can reset things here going into the final 10 games of the season.
How impressed were you with what Sam Darnold was able to do? Not just this week, but over the last couple of games. I think you can throw out the first couple of games of the season because he's kind of getting his feet wet. But over the last few games, what have you seen, Daryl, that makes you go, this is the real deal?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to remember the first 3 games were played in the course of 11 days. That's a really tough stretch for a rookie quarterback to endure. And Sam Darnold, the past couple weeks against the Broncos and the Colts, are obviously beatable teams, but his offensive line gave him some protection against that Broncos front. And then against the Colts, he did a really nice job of taking what the Colts defense could give him, which is a lot of those short underneath throws. Of course, they play that cover 2. And that was what they were going to give him, and he took that, and he took advantage of that. One thing he's done a lot better job of, according to his teammates, is being more assertive in the huddle in terms of his confidence and his play calls, in terms of taking control and command of the huddle. And you've sort of seen how that's manifested itself over these past couple of games of the success that he's had. 2 really good games in a row for the first time in his career. He's got 5 touchdowns, 2 picks the last 2 weeks. I think the quarterback rating's like a 110 combined over that time. The Jets will take that for sure. And so they're really happy with what they've seen in terms of his decisiveness, in terms of his accuracy, and in terms of being aware of what the opponent has, in terms of taking what the defense gives him against the Colts, and then the Broncos gave him some deep shots. He was able to finally connect on those.
Yep, Daryl Slater joining us, NJ.com, covers the New York Jets. And listen, the defense can be great at times. It can be frustrating at other times. The Jets were in command of that game, but damn if Andrew Luck just wouldn't go away and just kept plugging away and plugging away. And I know the Jets were hurting the secondary a little bit, but, man, there's some things they got to clean up on defense.
Yeah, no question. I mean, the past 3 weeks they've given up at least 400 yards. I mean, the loss to Jacksonville was a disaster defensively, but they're a little bit better against the Broncos. And then the takeaways were their saving grace against the Colts. They had 4 of them. And last year, this team never got more than 3 takeaways in any one game, and they only got 3 takeaways 3 times. They already have 5 in the opener against the Broncos, or rather the Lions, and then last week against the Colts 4. So the Jets are at 15 takeaways. They had 20 all of last year. So that covers up for a lot of defensive mistakes. And there certainly were a lot of mistakes in terms of the Colts being able to gain a bunch of yards. And 400 yards 3 straight games is not ideal for the Jets, but the takeaways will cover up for that. In terms of the secondary and going forward, the Jets this week against the Vikings get Kirk Cousins and Adam Thielen, which is a fantastic combination. Thielen is the most effective receiver statistically in the league right now. And the Jets secondary is banged up big time. Marcus May's got a broken thumb. He's not playing this week. Buster Screen's got a concussion, the slot cornerback. He might not play. And Tremaine Johnson dealing with a strained quadricep, of course, the number 1 corner there. So the Jets might be without 3 of their 5 starters in the secondary, if you count slot corner as a starter. Since they play so much nickel, you really should count that as a starting position. So that's a tall order for the Jets here and Todd Bowles to figure out just how to cover Thielen and how to handle Cousins in this game.
And you got Quincy Enunwa, too. The news came down that he's out. But the good news is, I guess, Curse has finally become part of the, he's starting to get some looks, and he's actually contributing. He was kind of MIA for the first couple of games. So even offensively, they're still a little bit banged up there as well. Do they need to go out and get some wide receiver help, or what do you think is going to happen?
I don't think this is a long-term injury for Quincy Nunwood. A few weeks here with his ankle sprain, and Terrell Pryor is dealing with a groin issue, and he had a groin issue earlier in the year, so maybe a recurring thing. It's not clear if it's the same exact type of condition that he was dealing with earlier in the year. So the Jets really need Robbie Anderson and Jermaine Kearse to step up. I think they'll be fine with that group, and Chris Herndon, the tight end, the rookie, showed some signs of being a sure-handed catcher in the last game against the Colts. So that's a good sign for the Jets. So I think they'll be okay sitting with what they've got. Quincy Nunwood's situation doesn't appear to be a long-term deal. Just, those high ankle sprains can be tricky.
Yeah, no, they absolutely can. Daryl Slater, NJ.com, follows the New York Jets, covers them. And listen, it's funny, the back page of the New York Post, we've got to hear about all sorts of it's redemption time, pointing fingers at Kirk Cousins for, thank you, Kurt, for not taking the offer, and it allowed us to go up and get Sam Darnold. But isn't it amazing, Daryl, because just a few weeks ago, not everybody was singing the praises of Kirk Cousins, sticking his nose up at the New York Jets and heading to the Minnesota Vikings. Is this a revenge factor at all going into this game?
I mean, the players don't see it that way. I mean, they have no control over who the team signs or doesn't sign in free agency. Of course, and Kirk Cousins made the logical decision for him. I mean, nobody can blame him for wanting to go to a team where he could win more immediately at this stage of his career. I mean, he's 30 years old, and he's made a lot of money, and it's not like the Vikings offered him nothing. I mean, the Jets were offering him $6 million more over the course of 3 years. So it's $2 million more each year. When you're making $84 million total, $90 million, you really need the extra $6. Or is it worth coming to a team where you're not going to win? I mean, he did the totally logical thing, and in the end, the Jets wound up in a better situation with a quarterback. Now, we'll see what Sam Darnold can become, but there are a lot of reasons why the Jets are better off with Sam Darnold than they would have been with Kirk Cousins, and one of them, the age factor is one, and of course the price tag is another. The Jets have a lot of holes. They're not a win-now team. They need to plug holes, and Kirk Cousins wasn't going to be their only hole, and paying them $90 million is going to hamstring their ability to fill some of those other holes, including pass rushers. So now they have a ton of cap space going into the offseason next year, about $106 million projected right now, and they can go after a guy like DeMarcus Lawrence or go after a guy like Le'Veon Bell. So the Jets are in a better situation financially because of that. We'll see what Darnold becomes. And he's good signs so far. The jury's still out. But I think we know who Kirk Cousins is. He's a very good quarterback who's not elite. The thing about Darnold is he has an opportunity, at least, to be a generational quarterback. An opportunity, a chance. That's the emphasis on that word. So we'll see. But I think the Jets are better off with Sam Darnold. And quite frankly, Kirk Cousins is better off in Minnesota.
Absolutely, I agree. This is one of those very rare win-win situations where there shouldn't be any feelings hurt, and you usually don't get that in the NFL an awful lot, but that seems to be where we're at here. And also, I mean, listen, you look at what's going on with the Jets offense, the ability, I mean, in 3 games, they've averaged at least 37 points with a rookie quarterback, and that's really never been done before, at least this early on in the season with a rookie QB. He's come a long way, but at the same time, he's got to get that offensive running game. You gash Denver for 300 yards, it's got to get a little more consistent, doesn't it?
Yeah, the Jets weren't able to do anything on the ground against Jacksonville, and not a ton on the ground against the Colts. Of course, you mentioned the Broncos. They gash them for a lot of big plays. That's not really sustainable. I mean, you're not going to crank out a bunch of 30, 40, 70-yard runs. That's not how you become a good running team generally. The Broncos were a disaster, and they are a disaster right now. So I think you have to almost set that game aside and say, how are the Jets doing on a per play basis in terms of running the ball? And they've been okay. I mean, statistically, they're going to be, that one game is going to bump them up because they've only played 6, and that one game statistically is an outlier. But I think the Jets really have to focus here with Isaiah Crowell and Bilal Powell and their offensive line on establishing a consistent running game to take some pressure off Sam Darnold, especially against a pretty good defense like the Vikings.
And what about defensive coordinator Casey Rogers? Is he back calling plays? I know that he has he's kind of been absent. He's been dealing with a health scare, according to Todd Bowles there. What is the status of Casey Rogers right now?
Yeah, as of yesterday on Monday, Casey Rogers has been cleared to return to work. He dealt with a medical scare, undisclosed. Todd Bowles declined to specify it. He did say initially that it was a serious illness, but as it turned out, Casey Rogers fortunately was only had to miss 2 games. He was not present at all at the game against the Broncos. He was there against the Colts, but he did not coach. He just watched the game from upstairs, like is where he normally sits, but he didn't do any coaching. He will be back, and he will work Sunday's game against the Vikings. He's going to be working this week back at the Jets facility. So he got the all clear yesterday, so that's fantastic news for him and for the Jets and Todd Bowles, who's very close friends with Casey Rogers. So on a personal basis for Todd Bowles, that's welcome news. In terms of how things will be handled going forward with the defensive play calling, it's up in the air. Todd Bowles handled that, of course, the last couple weeks with Casey Rogers out, and it's not clear if Casey Rogers will resume his duties with calling the defense this week against the Vikings. It's Todd Bowles needs to see this week how things unfold. So Bowles obviously was familiar with calling the defense previously from his time in Arizona as the DC there, and then had called the defense early on in his time with the Jets. But Casey Rogers had been doing it for a little while now, most of the past. Well, all of this year, of course, last year, and I think a good chunk of 16. So at some point, I would think that he takes those reins back, but not clear if that'll be on Sunday.
Well, listen, it's a big game at home against Minnesota, who a lot of people think is definitely one of those teams that can contend for a Super Bowl. Kirk Cousins, the last time he faced, I think the only time he faced the Jets was back in 2015 with the Redskins, and the Jets ended up beating him then. So I'm sure they'll have an interesting game plan put together, but the health of this team right now, Daryl, I think is maybe the biggest scare. Do they have enough depth to overcome these injuries, do you think?
Yeah, and I think the secondary is the biggest issue right now. So in terms of Marcus May, the free safety, who he's got the broken thumb and won't play this week and might be out, a month or so, the Jets are, their options are Doug Middleton, who's been dealing with a hamstring injury and who did okay replacing May for the first 3 games when May had a foot injury, and then Terrence Brooks, who was, had mixed results against the Colts. So not ideal there. In terms of the corner, they're going to have to put Morris Claiborne as their number 1 corner against Adam Thielen. Huge test for Claiborne, who's played well this year. And then at the other spot, they have Darryl Roberts as their other outside corner. He's an okay guy. He's an okay player. I mean, but that's really what he is. And then in the slot, they're going to be going with Perry Nickerson, a rookie, once again in place of Buster Skrine, presuming Skrine doesn't play. And Nickerson didn't play any slot corner in college at Tulane, so he's still adjusting to the position, and he's shown some hiccups here over the past couple weeks since replacing Skrine against the Broncos after the concussion that Skrine had. So there are definitely some concerns injury-wise, especially in the secondary.
Before I let you go here, I got to ask, because there's an awful lot of Giant fans that are very worried that the New York Jets and Sam Darnold are overtaking, from a popularity standpoint, the New York Giants and Eli Manning. What is the feeling there, Daryl? What is the vibe? Have the Jets now become the more popular team in New York over the Giants, who have been the mainstay for how long now?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's 6 games, and the Jets are 3-3. It's not like they're 6-0.
Right.
Obviously, the Giants are off a miserable start at 1-5. But this sort of thing, in terms of popularity, it comes in ebbs and flows based on the success. Certainly, people want to root for a winner. But I don't see, I don't think there's a lot of Giant fans jumping ship and cheering on a 3-3 Jet team. But in terms of the attention paid to the Jetsers, they are an intriguing team because they've done some good things here the last couple of weeks with an intriguing rookie quarterback, and the Giants sort of equally intriguing for a different reason for their failures. So look, I think that sort of thing takes some time to manifest itself in terms of the changing of the popularity. 6 games not enough just yet for that to change, but obviously there's a lot of people frustrated with the Giants, and there's a lot of people paying attention to them. And that means people care if people are mad about the Giants. So I still think the Giants are the top dog in town in terms of more people caring about them. But the Jets, who knows what this next potential decade could look like with Sam Darnold.
Yeah, listen, it's a good thing. The fact that they don't have to worry about a quarterback is actually a very good thing. All right, Daryl Slater, NJ.com. Make sure that you guys follow him, Jet fans. He's the guy to go to for everything that's going on with the team. Make sure you check it out at Daryl Slater on Twitter. Daryl, thank you very much for taking some time, my friend. Look forward to doing this again.
Sure, thanks for having me.